What's going on, guys? I am Alejandro Mendoza, and this video is part 2 to my complete theory on what happened to the O2 cast. So if you haven't watched part 1 yet, or if you haven't finished it yet, make sure to go watch it first. I'll leave a link in the description. Now, before we actually get into the video, there's an issue I quickly wanted to address. And that issue is that I think that the titles of this video and of my first theory video that I made, obviously, Dark Gennai's plan, that they may be a bit misleading. And what I mean by that is, I think that because I put, obviously, in this video, complete theory on the missing O2 cast, I think that people could misinterpret that as, me putting my Dark Gennai theory, putting those two parts together into one video, and this just being, just Dark Gennai's plan, just, completed together and not as two separate videos. But that's not the case, because the Dark Gennai's plan video, it obviously mainly focuses around me explaining Dark Gennai's plan and how I think the O2 cast would return and have an impact on Kari. It wasn't really, I did obviously explain, what a little bit about what happened, what I think happened to them. It wasn't really meant to explain what happened to them, and more so to explain how I think they would have an impact on Kari. Whereas with this video that I'm making right now, this is meant to, explain what I think actually happened to them. So I just really wanted to quickly address that issue. Tell me in the comments down below if if you got confused by the title and thought that this was just my Dark Gennai's plan video combined together into one, because I wouldn't want you guys to get confused. I'm sure someone maybe might have gotten confused, but just let me know in the comments if there's anything I can do to fix it. And with that being said, let's get this video started. So obviously during the end of part 1, I had just finished telling Kari's side of the story about what happened with the O2 cast. And when I said Kari's side of the story, I'm pretty sure most of you knew what I meant. If you watched part 2 to my Dark Gennai's plan video, because I obviously summarized it there. But also if you're a newcomer coming in and you haven't seen that video yet, then you wouldn't know about it, obviously. So when I was saying obviously Kari's side of the story, I meant that obviously I'm not saying Kari's lying, but with what happened to Kari, that may not be fully what happened. I was in the part 1, I was trying to convey that message, that everything may not be as it seems, that the story that was told to Kari might be false, and that Davis himself might not be Davis. So with that being said, let's get into what I think actually happened to the O2 cast. So to do that, we have to go back a bit. We have to go back to when Kari just left Davis and the others after their celebration of Diabormon's defeat. So, Kari leaves Davis, Ken, Yuli, and Cody alone. They're all just talking to each other now, just having a good time, even though everybody else has already gone. And this goes on for maybe a couple minutes, maybe 5. But then they're just having a good time. But then as they're talking and stuff, all of them suddenly get a message on their D terminals, and they all they all get out their D terminals and they look at it, and it's a message from Gennai, and it's talking about how there's an evil Digimon roaming the digital world, and that he needs them to come over and help defeat it. That it's an emergency, they need to defeat it now. So Davis, Ken, Yuli, and Cody, they all they all look at each other and they're we have to go, and maybe they are thinking should we wait for the others, or should we go meet with the others? But obviously they know all the others are busy. So what they do is they're if the original cast that they'll go right now, and the original cast can catch up with them basically. So, obviously, they use Yuli's computer, because, in Diaboromon Strikes Back, we saw that Yuli had a laptop. So, Yuli pulls out her computer, they use the computer to go to the digital world, and, they end up, just, in this, wasteland. And, they're looking around, for Gennai, or, for the Digimon that he's, talking about that they need to defeat. And, eventually, a Digimon pops up, and it's Alphamon. And, they're they're not sure what to make of Alphamon until like he obviously attacks them. So like they obviously like it's like they're like like this is the Digimon we have to defeat. So they, Davis and Ken, they DNA Digivolve Wormmon and Vmon into Imperial Dramon, and Yoli and Cody I mean they can go champion or like maybe use their armored Digivolutions, but they probably wouldn't be able to help too much. Like I think the most I could see them helping against Alphamon would be Digimon like using his rock cracking attack to like break the ground underneath Alphamon like so that he could lose his balance. But other than that, like I don't think Yoli and Cody would be able to help in the fight too much. So obviously Imperial Dramon starts fighting against Alphamon, and for a while like they seem pretty evenly matched. That they're just like going evenly with one another, and everything seems like all right for a while. But then like Alphamon begins getting the edge over Imperial Dramon, and like Davis and the others notice this, and they realize that like Alphamon's too strong, and then they need the others to come. So like like they're obviously like maybe like a bit confused like as to why the others haven't come in, because the message that they got was addressed to everyone from Gennai. Like it wasn't just to them, like it was sent to all of them. Like that's what the message said, like it was sent to all of them. So like like they eventually like Davis is just like they'll come, and like he himself like sends a message like just in case like maybe they didn't see the first message. And but the thing is though that like as he's sending the message to them, like he's able to send it, but Alphamon notices him doing this, and like he decides like no more playing around, it's time to just end this. And then he uses his what was it called? I think it's called the Alpha Inforce or something along those lines. But it's basically Alphamon's power where he's able to attack a Digimon like he's able to kind of freeze time in a sense, or move so fast that you can't see any of his attacks until you can only see like his final attack, and like so like he uses that move, and like obviously Imperial Dramon isn't able to counter it. Like he might be able to obviously dodge the last attack because the last attack you're actually able to see, but even if he did, he'd still be severely injured. So like Alphamon uses his power, knocks Imperial Dramon back into Vmon and Wormmon, knocks out Armadillomon and Hawkmon too, and obviously the O2 cats like they go to their Digimon and like they're about to like run away, but Alphamon like doesn't let them. Like he proceeds to like knock each one of them out, and that's where we get the scene where with all of them falling down is like where Alphamon like knocks each one of them out. And so following this Alphamon picks all of them up, and he opens a portal and he goes through it, and when he exits the portal he's in a base, like he's in Yggdrasil's base, and when as he's like entering the base, like Dark Gennai is there to meet him, and Dark Gennai is like telling him like see, like I told you that they would come, like that the Digidestined are like so easy to manipulate, that people are so easy to manipulate. And Alphamon doesn't really say anything, like he just like has the kids in his hand, and like Dark Gennai says like Yggdrasil's waiting for you. So like both him and Alphamon go to meet Yggdrasil, and they go into this throne room, and they kneel, and like Yggdrasil pops up, and like he sees that obviously Alphamon has captured the O2 Digidestined, and he's like like really good. He's like very good Alphamon, like this is the start of our plan, and like obviously Yggdrasil is grateful to Alphamon for capturing them, and Yggdrasil is like anything for you, my majesty, or whatever. And eventually they'll Alphamon has to tell him about the message that David sent, like he's like Yggdrasil sama, he's like that like I saw the leader, I saw Davis writing on his D terminal about a message perhaps, and so Yggdrasil is curious about this, so he has Gennai get out Davis's D terminal, and Gennai opens it, and it reveals that he sent a message to all the original cast asking for help, and to see if the original cast are actually coming. Yggdrasil opens he has a screen pop up that shows where the wasteland where they were, and they can see that the Kari is heading towards the wasteland, and they're wondering like what they should do about this. Obviously, like like should they interfere or should they just like let her go over there and like see what happens. And this is where like Dark Gennai, like he gets the idea to like he's like Yggdrasil, I have a plan, like and like Yggdrasil like looks at Dark Gennai curiously, and Gennai explains like that like obviously that their plan like is to get Kari to fall to the darkness so that homeostasis can't possess her anymore. And like he's like, this could be the perfect opportunity for us to begin that plot, like even though like they may have wanted to do it later, like this is the perfect chance to continue it. And Yggdrasil is like, how do you mean? And like what Dark Gennai then does is like he takes like the form of Davis, and he's like I'll take the form of Davis and like I'll go and mess with Kari. And like Yggdrasil is like intrigued by the plan. He's like he's thinking like this could be very beneficial towards us. And he was like, but like how will you know how to act as Davis? Like so like what eventually happens is though is that like as like they're talking, like Davis is like slowly waking up, and like he's able to like wake up like a bit, like for a little bit, and like he like sees them, and he like sees Gennai obviously, and he's like, Gennai, is that you? So like Gennai like turns towards Davis, and what he does though is like he's like hello Davis, I'm gonna need to be borrowing like I'm gonna need to see your memories right now. And like what Gennai does is like say like he grabs Davis, so like like he's able to like use Davis's data, like he just like kind of goes through Davis in a sense, and like he's able to like tap into Davis's memories, and he like sees like everything that like Davis has like gone through and stuff. And with that, he's obviously able to like obviously see like how Davis acts and stuff, so that like he can actually like pretend to be the real Davis, because obviously Davis is a lot different from Gennai, so Dark Gennai would have to do something in order to mimic him. So I think that with Yggdrasil and Alphamon obviously being there, that being able to like actually look into Davis's memories wouldn't be too difficult. So Dark Gennai does that, and he proceeds to take off Davis's goggles and like put them on his own head, like like to fully impersonate him. And like like before he's able to do that, that like Davis like grabs like his arm, like like trying to stop him, but like Davis is obviously too weak from the battle and getting hit by Alphamon, and he like eventually like he just like falls back into unconsciousness, like, but like not before like seeing like Dark Gennai like transform into Davis himself for a brief instant. All right, so following this, Dark Gennai goes to the wasteland, and like he Yggdrasil is like communicating to him telepathically, saying like remember, this is to make Kari fall to the darkness, you have to make this work, so Dark Gennai, like I said, Dark Gennai, he's like in Davis's form, and he proceeds to do what happened in the last video, where like he pretends to be Davis, and he gives Kari this false story about what happened, and ultimately makes her believe that that all the O2 cast, like they hate the 0-1 cast, like they think that they don't care about them, and ultimately like he throws down Davis's goggles and leaves, like saying how like obviously the original cast don't care about the O2 cast, and he just like leaves, and like he opened, like once he's far away enough from Kari, he opens a portal and he goes back to the base. So obviously now Kari and the original cast, like they think that like what happened with the O2 cast was what Davis said, even though it wasn't really Davis, like it was Dark Gennai in disguise as Davis. And so Gennai goes back to Yggdrasil's base, and he's like, was that satisfactory, master? And like Yggdrasil is like, yes, but like there's still one more issue we need to address. And that issue is obviously the parents of the O2 cast, because they can't like have them like questioning anything. So what Gennai then proceeds to do is like he proceeds to take the avatar of each one of the O2 cast, like he transforms into Yoli, into Ken, Cody, and Davis, and he goes to each one of their parents' houses, like pretending to be them, and he feeds them a false story about like how the digital world is in danger, and that it now needs the O2 cast to come back, but it doesn't need the original cast. So like he does that to all the parents and leaves a note for the original cast to find, just to ensure like that they don't question things as much as they normally would. So Dark Gennai finishes doing that, and ultimately, like, ultimately the original cast are like, they just kind of have to accept the story of what happened to them without actually knowing that, it was all a lie presented by Dark Gennai himself. So then that begs the question, though, what happens to the O2 cast, obviously, now that they're captured? Well, obviously, this is my theory, so I'm going to tell you. So obviously, the O2 cast, they eventually, all wake up again, and they're all, like, confused as to where they are, like, and they're, like, trying to, remember, and, like, eventually they're like, oh, yeah, we were fighting Alphamon, and then, like, he defeated us, and, like, so, like, where are we now? So, like, they're looking around, and they're, like, in this, like, a cell, basically, and, like, they're, like, trying to, like, they start calling out, like, for somebody to, like, maybe help them, like, like, to see if anybody's there. And eventually they get a response, like, from outside, like, the cell door. And, like, they look, and it's, like, it's one of the Royal Knights. It's Jessamon. And, like, they look towards him, and they're like, where are we, And he's like, Jessamon, like, tells him, like, you're in the like the headquarters of Yggdrasil's palace, and so he's like, just want, like, then proceeds to open the gate, and he's like Yggdrasil wants to have a meeting with you, and so, like, he has the O2 cast go out, and, like, the O2 cast, like, like, they don't have their Digimon with them, and they're wondering where their Digimon actually are. So they go out, and they're like, they kind of have to follow Digimon because they can't really fight him right now without their Digimon. And they notice, like, that their Digivices are also taken too. So, they're going into, like, the throne room, basically, and, like, they see their Alphamon, but Dark Gennai isn't there. Or, well, actually, actually, Dark Gennai would be there probably because obviously he's now a henchman of Yggdrasil. So Dark Gennai's there, and, like, they all notice this, and they're all, like, very surprised. And eventually Yggdrasil shows up, and he's like, "Hello, digidestined." And, like, he also has, like, the Digimon there too. Like, he brought out the Digimon as well. And he's like, it's time for my plan to descend upon the real and digital world. And he begins explaining to the O2 digidestined that he plans on, destroying the real world, and that he wants, like, no more human and Digimon interactions between. He just, like, wants humans and Digimon not to interact with each other anymore. He begins, like, explaining this plan to them, and obviously the O2 cast, like, get very angry at this because they're like, like, we're not enslaving Digimon, we're their friends, and, like, Yggdrasil is, like, nonsense or something like that, and, like, then begins explaining, like, that, like that humans are just, like, using Digimon as tools, basically. And, obviously the O2 cast are, like, wondering, like, why are you telling us all this? Like, like, and, like, Yggdrasil explains to them, like, well, because I need my new recruits to obviously know my plan, then, don't I? And he reveals that he wants the O2 cast to join his side. Now, obviously, the O2 cast, they're not going to join his side. They're like, Dave will probably be like, like, as if we'd ever join you, and, like, it's just like, but they're all, like, obviously flat out refusing Yggdrasil's offer, and, like, Yggdrasil obviously, expected this, and from here on out, like, this is where it kind of gets dark because Yggdrasil, he's not someone who takes no for an answer, so he'd then proceed to do whatever it took to change the Digidestined to his side. So it's like, he sends them back to their cells, and then throughout the next following months and years, because obviously, well, actually, maybe year, because, like, something is going to happen between Yggdrasil and the O2 cast, like, that's gonna just, like, kind of change everything in a sense, but, well, not everything, but somewhat, but, like, like, so obviously, Yggdrasil sends them back to their cells, and he then wants them to still go on his side, though, so he has Dark Gennai. He begins to, like, slowly kind of torture the O2 cast, like, maybe not physically torture, like, that could be a way, but he proceeds to, like, maybe psychologically torment them as well. like say something like similar to the D Reaper, like obviously with what happened with Jerry, like where the D Reaper was feeding off all her negative emotions, and making her live through all these nightmares just so it could power itself. I could see Yggdrasil doing something like that to the O2 cast, either like physically or mentally, like where he's like showing them all their worst fears, and just like trying to like break them, like so that he can bring them over to his side. So like like obviously like Yggdrasil like begins doing that, like begins like tormenting the O2 digidestined and is trying to essentially break them and make them part of his team. So like this goes on like obviously for a couple months, like before Yggdrasil realizes that this isn't going to be enough to like actually break them, because like they're too strong-willed. Davis and the others like I'm not saying like like that there wouldn't be any side effects to like the torture though, like because obviously like if someone would torture you psychologically, physically, and like mentally, that would like obviously like it could like obviously it would obviously very much harm yourself, and like would probably discourage you a lot. But like with Davis and the others, like they probably support one another a lot, like and encourage one another to keep on going, especially Davis, because he's the leader, and he's always been the kind of person that like keeps everybody going strong. But like obviously at points like even he would probably get discouraged, but they would want to keep on going, obviously. All right, so obviously like after maybe a few months of this like torture to try and get them to join his side, Yggdrasil sees that it's not going to go anywhere, so he needs another method. So he needs another method to bring them to his side, and that's where like he eventually decides that he's going to infect them with a virus, like infect them with a virus that will bring them to his side, like that will force them to go to his side. Because the reason I think this is because one, like obviously the digidestined are made of data, like in the digital world they're made of data, so it wouldn't be too impossible to say that they could get infected with a virus too, like just like the Digimon do. And the second reason is because I saw a video. I'm not sure if it's like 100% true or not, but it was about like supposed leaks about Digimon Adventure Tri symbiosis. So if you don't want to hear the supposed leaks, like I don't know if they're 100% true or not, but like if you don't want to hear this, like skip ahead a little bit. But essentially the leaks were that Cody was going to appear in symbiosis, and he was going to be infected with a prototype virus. So if we're going based on that, like that would make a lot of sense, because like with the O2 digidestined being kidnapped supposedly by Alphamon and by extension Yggdrasil, if Yggdrasil wanted them for his plans, obviously he'd want them to join his side, and the best way to do that would be to infect them with a virus. And maybe like Gennai himself is infected with a virus, because like he's obviously in the dark side now, and like maybe Yggdrasil infected him with a virus that ultimately turned him evil, and maybe he's gonna do the same to the O2 cast. So he obviously Yggdrasil, Alphamon, and Gennai, they create this virus that's meant to change the O2 digidestined, that's meant to turn them to Yggdrasil's side, that's meant to just like overall like make them submissive to Yggdrasil. So they create the virus, and they infect the O2 digidestined with it. And they're like they're thinking they're thinking that this is sure to work. That the O2 cast will be able to resist us any longer. But then more time passes, like like let's say like that by now it's been a year, and like there are no effects. Like nothing like seriously has gone. Like nothing serious has happened with the O2 cast. Like obviously Yggdrasil, Gennai, and them are like confused by this. Like they're like, what the heck is going on? And like eventually like Yggdrasil like has a hunch, or Gennai has a hunch, like about like the O2 cast. And, like what they do is they bring them out, and they put them on these tables, like like how Datamon like had Sora put on a table, and like made a clone out of her. But like this isn't to make a clone, it's like to analyze their data, like to analyze what's inside of the O2 cast. So that's what they do. They analyze the O2 cast and their Digimon, and as they're analyzing them, they notice something inside all of them, like something that's very similar. They notice like this weird energy within each one of them, and like they're analyzing that energy, and eventually they realize that the energy inside there is Oikawa. So it would appear that that Oikawa, like before the O2 cast, like were captured, or before like Gennai and Yggdrasil started torturing them, Oikawa like gave them like some of their energy, like without them knowing, because he's obviously Oikawa sacrificed himself to repair the digital world, and he just became energy. So like it wouldn't be too far-fetched to say that with Oikawa being energy, like he's able to like see like most of what's going on in the digital world. So like he saw the O2 cast being defeated, and like he saw what Yggdrasil was going to do to them, and Oikawa as energy ultimately decided, I have to protect them. They helped me. The Digidestined helped me so much. I need to help them. So he gave all of the O2 cast and their Digimon like some of his power without them realizing it, in order to protect them. And Dark Gennai, obviously, like once they like finally figure this out, they're like we should have known, like that Oikawa would do something like this. And like now, like they're like what shall we do now? And obviously, like the O2 cast, like at this point, they're like probably like they're probably weakened to a point, obviously, but they're still like trying to keep themselves strong. And eventually, though, Yggdrasil and Gennai are like it looks like we'll just have to wait a bit longer then for the reboot to happen, because keep in mind that the reboot resets everything up to a point, like it reset everything to a point before like before the original cast met their Digimon, and it just caused all of this, like everything to be reset back to up to a certain point, like way before Oikawa and Black War Greymon happened. So if the reboot were to happen, then we could likely conclude that like that Oikawa himself, like with the reboot happening, that Oikawa would in a sense disappear, and with Oikawa disappearing, then all the energy that's protecting the 02 kids would disappear as well. So Yggdrasil and Gennai, like they come to that conclusion, and they're like, it seems that this is just a waiting game now, isn't it? And like so they put the Digidestined back in their cells, and all the Digidestined are just like they're trying to like find a way out, like they've been trying to do that for like this past year, but they like can't seem to find anything, and like eventually get to a point like where they're gonna like try to give up, or like they're going to give up, but like I think that like something between the Digidestined and Jessamon, between obviously the O2 Digidestined and Jessamon occurred, because I think that obviously with the Digidestined being prisoner, they need someone to watch them, and Jessamon, like we know he's in conflict with Alphamon and Yggdrasil. We obviously see that he's fighting against Alphamon, so we know that something happened, but we don't know what yet. And I think that Jessamon, like after seeing all of this, after seeing like obviously the Digidestined being tortured and their Digimons being tortured, them being infected by this virus that's just supposed to make them just basically obedient robots to Yggdrasil, like after seeing all this, like that he eventually like decided that like enough is enough, and he decided to help the O2 cast. And like even more than that though, I think that throughout like like the time that passed, obviously between the O2 Digidestined being captured and them being tortured and all that stuff, that they somehow managed to like break through like Jessamon's like defenses in a sense, because I'm pretty sure that Yggdrasil like would be like to Jessamon like do not speak to them, do not acknowledge them, just ignore them. And like Jessamon would probably try to do that, but with like Davis and all of them like being like they aren't the type to give up, they like keep talking to him, like trying to get something out of him, and eventually like I think they managed to break through his barrier, and like they managed to become friends with Jessamon. And from that they obviously like were like Jessamon eventually like decides like like maybe Yggdrasil is wrong, like he's doing all these things, all these horrible things to these people and these Digimon, and like he like doesn't even see them as a threat anymore, like he kind of is like starting to see them as friends. So it eventually like gets to a point where like Jessamon is like I have to do something to stop this, and obviously Jessamon is a student of from what we know based on the wiki, Jessamon is like Genkumon student, Genkumon is another Gain or Gan or Gankumon or Gankumon, however it's pronounced, that he's a student of Gankumon, and that Jessamon has always wanted to be a royal knight. But obviously with Yggdrasil doing all these horrible things to the O2 cast, it's probably making him question, does he really want to be a royal knight, and he's just thinking about all this, and I think eventually he just would have enough and would eventually decide, I have to break them out, I have to help them. And he'd probably even maybe get Genkumon to help him break them out. And ultimately, this all leads up to a point where Jessamon and Genkumon, they ultimately plan a rebellion against Alphamon and Yggdrasil to save the O2 cast. And that is going to be the end to this part. So, thank you all for watching. I'm really glad I got this video out because I feel that part 1, if you obviously hadn't watched my Dark Gennai's plan theory, that then you wouldn't obviously know about a Dark Gennai being pretending to be Davis. You might have been a bit confused, and I'm just ultimately glad I got this video out. I really expected though to finish it during this part. I thought this would be enough time, but I guess not. But overall, thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed the video, maybe leave a like, and if you're enjoying the content I'm producing right now, maybe consider subscribing. And if you have any thoughts on Digimon, on my theory, on me, or just overall anything that I could be doing better, or any questions you have, leave it in the comments down below. I'd be glad to answer them. And overall, just have to say it again, thank you for watching. I am Alejandro Mendoza, and I will see you later. Bye.